Hello everyone, my new microphone comes later today, so I'm going to be putting out more new content tomorrow. Hope you're all having a great day and enjoy this video. Make sure you check out the podcast in the description, and if you're interested in what I look like in real life, check out my Instagram at Joe the Insomniak. This happened just over 2 years ago, at the end of my first year of university. I'm female, and at the time was 21. My university's in a very large city, and I was living in university accommodation, a short walk from the main campus. My flatmates had all finished their exams and gone home for the summer, so I was alone in my flat. I was pretty stressed because I was in the middle of my first round of university exams and decided that it wouldn't be prudent to waste my precious study time cooking, so I ordered pizza. It was about 8:30 in the evening when my pizza arrived, so it was on the verge of getting dark. My block of flats had a keycard entry system, so the pizza delivery guy couldn't come right into my door. I saw his car pull up outside, and I go down to get my pizza. The delivery guy stepped out of his car as I walk over. Now he's tall, stocky, and looked to be in his late 20s or early 30s and hands me the pizza. I say thanks, making my way out. However, he had other ideas, saying, "You're very pretty." I don't know how to respond, so I said thanks again. Then he said, "Are you home alone?" This set off my creep alarm straight away. I say no, I'm not. However, my order was clearly meant for one person, and I was in a largely deserted block of flats at the very end of the school year, so he very easily deduced that I was actually lying. I was thoroughly creeped out by this point, so I turned around to walk back to the door. As I walk away, he wolf whistled after me saying, "Wow, you look good." As I walk up the steps, he continued to whistle and whoop and generally be inappropriate. Needless to say, I close the door and lock them as quick as I can, then moving on to my bedroom. Had this happened to me more recently, I would have called the pizza place right away to report the incident. At the time though, I wasn't in the best mindset, so I ate my pizza and focused on my exams. The next few days passed without incident, and I finished my exams and went back to my parents' house for the summer. When I arrived home, I decided that I ought to call the pizza place to report this. I did, and a young woman answered the phone, sounding horrified when I explained the situation. Apparently this guy was a total creep and had done so before and actually got kicked out for it. To set the scene, I live on the outskirts of a town at the end of a terraced house, and there are lots of houses in my area, in front and beyond. I was home alone. My boyfriend was over his friends. At this time, we didn't really lock the front door. If one of us was in the house, now I do. Nothing really happened when we lived there. We had 3 decent sized dogs that were pretty savage when they had to be, and we were a bit naive. And to be fair, I had recently moved in here with my boyfriend, and before I lived in a small village. So I was sat there in my pajamas, watching TV with all the dogs next to me when the door knocks. It was about 10 PM, and I'm in my pajamas, so I'm a bit annoyed. I got the dogs off me and walk out to the living room and pull the living room door closed, keeping the dogs in. Bear in mind, this all took place within 10 seconds, and as I approach the door, it swings open and this man that I've never seen before storms in, getting right in my face. I'm literally frozen in shock. The man says, "Who do you think you are?" And I'm in silence. "You think you can run around here and do what you want, causing trouble? You don't care. You think I'm a muppet. I saw you and your little friends running back into this house." I say, "I'm literally stood here in my pajamas. I haven't been outside." "Yeah, okay, you think I was born yesterday." And he literally begins screaming. He stares at me for what feels like forever, probably a couple of seconds, then quickly sprinting out, slamming the door shut. I was stood there shaking for seconds before I start to get mad when I realise what's happened. I lock the door and ring up my boyfriend straight away, who gets home in about a minute flat. But the group was nowhere to be seen. We didn't call the police. I didn't want to cause any more commotion. Now, it's been 7 years since that happened, and I've not bumped into this person since, or the others with him outside. I again thank God I haven't, and always keep the door locked now. This took place when I was 12. I live in a suburban neighbourhood. Our house is beside railway tracks, so because of this, teenagers will walk along the tracks at night and climb over the railings into backyards. Most of the time they're only playing around or exploring, so there's no trouble with them. But sometimes there's more malicious people coming off the tracks. I was home alone when this took place. It's about 1:20, and it was very dark outside. I was watching TV in my room. I heard my house phone ring, but I let it go to voicemail because I wasn't bothered to answer it. 2 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, I went to go answer it, just in case it was urgent, as it was 1 AM. When I picked up the phone and said hello, I had no answer. I say hello again, so I hung up. I think, it's probably just a stupid scam call. When I was back settled in my room and watching TV, I heard a rattling sound from outside. I hear it again, so I look out my window thinking it was probably just teenagers trying to jump over the fence. Except, there wasn't a group of teenagers. It was just a guy trying to get over the fence, torch in mouth. I knew this was shady, but I don't know what to do. I didn't call the police, I just watch him. The man finally gets over the fence. I couldn't see his face, but he was pointing his flashlight at various things in my yard. Everything valuable, such as bikes. They were keeping away in a locked shed, so I knew he would just get bored and walk away. But he didn't. He hung around in the garden for a couple of minutes and then went towards the kitchen door. From my bedroom, I could hear the handle of the back door being messed with. My heart sunk as I remembered that I left my phone in the kitchen, and that's the only way I can call the police. I then heard him bang his fist on the door loudly, but it stops just as suddenly as it starts. I look out my window and hear him scream, and watch him jump back over the fence, turning off the flashlight, disappearing into the abyss of darkness. I'm not quite sure what happened that day, but from that point on, I brought my phone with me everywhere I went. So my husband is in the military. We have generally lived on bases every station we've been to because the surrounding towns can be very crime ridden and sketchy, with my husband mostly on overtime security. I work from home due to us moving so often, so one afternoon I was taking a break, had made a bite and was snuggling up on the couch with my dog. That's when I heard the sliding glass door open. It was so nonchalant that I think it's my husband. I saw my cat run from the kitchen, and a shadow standing near, not entering. I thought that maybe he's come back, so I call out for him and say, "What are you doing home? You forget something." And there's no answer. This is when I get this eerie feeling. After I ask what he's doing here, I saw the shadow move and heard the click of the sliding door lock. From there, he walked to the laundry room and shut the door. I've still got no response. Sitting on my couch, scared out of my mind, I call out to my husband, hoping he's near his phone. I don't hear a ring, but he answers. I ask him why he came home, and all he says is, "Grab your dog, get in the car now." After getting off the phone, I grab the dog and sprint to it. From there I call the MP. Waiting for them was probably the longest 20 minutes of my life. When they got there, they clear the house and find no one. They asked me to take a statement, and even though they're baffled, they do their best to help. The thing is, we're still on that base. I'm petrified that he's gonna return. This happened in the early thousands, and I was around 12 years old. My dad had passed away about 2 years before leaving my mum, sister and myself. To help me cope with my father's passing, my mum took me to the animal shelter to pick out a dog, since a large dog was something I always wanted. In one of the cages was a small shepherd/husky huddled in the corner that I fell in love with. When the incident happened, he was about 190 pounds and my best friend. Now when the incident occurred, my mum worked on nights and my older sister was taking advantage that my mum wasn't home and would constantly leave me alone. I didn't mind though, because then she couldn't boss me around, since when she was home she would try to be mum, telling me what to do and when to go to bed. We lived in a small middle class suburban area with a low crime rate. It was so low that I wasn't scared to be home alone. I was sitting in the living room playing video games and got up, heading to the kitchen to grab a drink. In the kitchen, I had a clear view through the back door and could see the garage open. Thinking that I just left it open after putting my bike away, I head out to the door to close it. My dog is sleeping in the basement since he liked to lay on the cool floor during the summers. I step out to the door and make it about 5 feet from it when I notice a darkness crouching shadow moving in the garage. I froze, trying to get my eyes to adjust to the darkness. It finally hit me when I saw the figure stand up and turn towards me. I was terrified and felt like I had been glued to the spot. I knew that this person could see me since the back porch lights on. At that moment, the figure starts running towards me. I was too scared to move and let out a yelp, then a scream. But that was all it took for my dog to hear, and the next thing I knew, he was behind me snarling and growling. I could make out it was a man, but no features when he now froze, seeing this 90-pound beast behind me. He turned and ran straight towards the back fence. My dog is in close pursuit. The guy made it to the fence, and since it was only 4 feet, he hopped over before the dog got him. After he got away, my dog came running back to me, and we went inside where I barricaded the doors. I don't know why I didn't call the cops and never told my mum or sister what happened. One thing that bothered me was that he had to have known I was inside since the lights are on and the blinds are open. So that's why the risk to hit a house when somebody was clearly home. The next morning after my mum was home, I went outside to finally close the garage and noticed that he had been going through my dad's toolbox. I locked up the garage and never told anyone about what happened. I then walked my dog to McDonald's and got him a burger, an ice cream cone for being my hero. Okay, so this just happened last night, and it's just kept me awake all night and I can't stop thinking about it, so please let me share it. Let me just explain the setup, what's going on. So we have only been living here for a little over 3 months, and my window is the only window out of the entire house that has a view of the backyard, and it's also right next to our very squeaky back door, meaning I always hear when someone comes in and out. Okay, so now to my story. So my family went out to run errands last night, leaving me home alone trying to catch up on my classes, because you know how college life is. Well, it was all going well for the first hour, until I hear the back gate open and shut. At first I think, oh, they must be back, thinking my family's there, but then I thought again that it probably isn't them. I remember we have a front door, and there's no reason for them to come through the back, so I sit still as long as I possibly can and listen. I start to hear the sound of crunching leaves as though someone's stepping on them, but I can also hear that they're now trying to move slowly. At this point, they're right under my window. I know this because we have a couch located right underneath it, and I hear someone actually sit on it and let out a quick grunt, which also let me know that it's a man who's doing this. I'm feeling extremely paranoid now. At this point, I'm completely freaking out, not even being able to move at all because there's literally someone sitting under my window, and I sit there motionless for like 2 minutes until I start to hear it. Tap, tap, tap. He's tapping on the window. They start out like light little taps. With each set of taps, he adds more weight. I feel my eyes growing wider and wider, and immediately I feel like I'm gonna pass out, and still I can't move. It's like I'm paralyzed with fear. It still keeps on going, tap tap tap, until finally I manage to snap out of it. Quickly grabbing some shorts and a tank top, I grab my keys and run out of the front door into a 30-degree weather night, which in my defense was definitely not the smartest thing to do, as who knows if he was alone or if he had more people waiting out the front to catch me. I don't know, I didn't care though. I hop into my car and drove off, parked at Walmart nearby and sit there in shock, not even believing what's happened. I then finally reach for my phone and see my hands are shaking really bad, but I managed to call my parents. As soon as I hear my dad's voice, I burst out crying. I mean, I wasn't even able to tell him what had happened. I just could not calm down. Even 5 minutes later, I was still crying, but eventually managed to tell them what happened when they arrived. I was terrified to go back, and even waited in the car until my dad came back from the yard after inspecting it and said whoever was there is gone. We also debated about calling the police, but I honestly didn't think anything could have been done out of it since I didn't even have a face to give a report to. I'm still terrified that they're gonna come back, and I don't feel safe whenever I'm left in the house all alone. I've been trying to distract myself all day, but now I'm just too shaken up to even enjoy my day. I just hope I can forget about the whole incident. It's the summer of '95. I was 11, sleeping home around 10 to 11 AM while my parents were at work. I get woken up by the doorbell, so I instinctively hurry up and down the corridor. but before I rushed to open the door as I normally would, I remembered that many times my mum scolded me for opening the door without asking who is it first, or looking through the spy hole to make sure it's safe to open. Especially after some previous creepy experiences have already taken place by now. I say who is it, but all I hear is some unintelligible mumble. So I brought a chair, stepped on it to look through the hole. We live in an apartment building, and on the right of our door was the elevator, and then the staircase. Since the staircase windows were on the far left corner, there was not enough natural light to help me see who it is. I just saw a male with some colourful t-shirts standing outside. I repeat the question, and then strained to hear the answer. He said he was looking for my mother's maiden surname, and I said she's at work. To give you some context, both of my parents are doctors. I don't know if that sounds weird for people in the US or the rest of the Western world, but in Eastern Europe, in the 19s, it wasn't uncommon for grateful patients to sometimes stop by wanting to give thanks by bringing fresh fruit or vegetables, etc. So the man said he was bringing something for my mum, except in the murky light, I could see his hands were empty. I asked where it is, and he said, "The package? That's at the stairs." At this point, I'm starting to get this uneasy feeling that something's not right. So I decide to be cautious and lie to him, saying that I don't have keys. I said my parents are at work and they've told me not to open the door to strangers. So when they come back, they'll help him. He started to get agitated and said he can't wait that long, and then says that he is actually bringing meat, so it's gonna get spoiled. I start to hesitate because I'm thinking, what if he's telling the truth? Do I get in trouble? But then I look through the spy hole again and see his hair. This means that his ears pressed against the door listening in. That spooks me and I say, "I'm sorry, I can't help you, please go away and come back later when I'm not alone." He once again says that he does not have time to go back and forth, so offers to leave and says he'll leave with the package at the stairs. So when he's gone, I'm not afraid to open the door and get it. Now this terrifies me, but I remain quiet and intently observe him as he goes down the stairs and makes noises of climbing down. And then I freeze, because in the silence that ensued, I was just about to really open the door and check when I saw part of the freaking t-shirt sleeve above the corner of the stairs. He's hiding there, probably thinking that I know he's gone. What was he gonna do? Pounce on me, break in, or worse? I get so scared that I just froze, and I kept on watching, standing on the chair behind the door. And finally, after what felt like hours, I hear him actually descending the stairs. I didn't open the door. I called my mum's hospital, but I can't get through. Great. They both got worried, but proud at the same time I did the right thing. A few hours later, I and all the kids from the building are at the little square playground area in front of it. It was buzzing with kids running around, with grandpas etc, so it's safe. My best friend Nina and I are sitting on one of the benches, when suddenly a strange man approaches us and stands next to the bench, saying, "Are you and my name?" And I hesitantly confirm it, although my heart starts to beat faster as I recognize the voice. It's the same man from the morning. This time, I'm not alone. So I instinctively press myself closer to Nina when he says, "Well, I'm bringing something in my father's name, but it's in the car, and I parked around the street. Could you come and help me?" Encouraged by my friend's presence and all the people around, I say to him that my dad is actually home, so if he waits there, I'll go and get him, and he can bring him whatever he wants from the car, as I'm little and can't carry heavy stuff. The moment I said that, the guy got quiet and quickly starts walking away, borderline running. My friend, who already knew about what was happening in the morning, and I ran to my apartment. I told my dad. He gets up to go and chase the guy, but of course, there's no trace of him. My dad starts asking away if anyone's had any sign of this, but unfortunately no one seems to. Well, except for one grandma, an old lady living alone on the first floor, who says that a guy approached her earlier while she's sitting on the balcony, asking about our family, then tried to ask for money to pay for the maids he was bringing. As he told her that my parents had purchased it for him, she told him that he has no money, but stupidly gave away all the information. Now, we never heard anything about the guy again, thank God, but those questions are puzzling me. What did he want? How did he get my mum's name, but then said he was bringing something for my dad? Was he only focused on abducting me? I'm just glad I never had to find out. Okay, I haven't really thought about this in a long time. I think I tried to downplay what could have happened because it's easier than accepting the scary reality. So with that out of the way, here's my experience. I was about 13, so it was a good 5 years ago or so. I was at my friend's house, where I don't think I was supposed to be, and we're hanging out. My friend is 2 years younger than me, but we grew up together. So for the most part, everything's normal, until there's a knock on the next door. Now, we're pretty sure that it can't be anyone normal. Now, we're at her home alone, and we're definitely not expecting anyone. Now, I'm a pretty fearless person for the most part, who has no regard for her own safety, but a strong regard for the safety of others. I walked to the door and peered through the curtains. Past the door, there's a man in his late 30s who was standing with a clipboard. His car wasn't in the driveway, but on the street by the house, I think. No, scratch that. I know he saw me because he began to speak. "I'm here to fix your cable." My friend on the stairs has had people come down to do things before, but her parents always told her that it's gonna happen in advance. Her face looks confused and utterly terrified. She's not the bravest, but I did have a bad gut feeling. So by now I think, okay, don't open the door and he's gonna leave. A rational idea, right? Well, at this point, the man kept knocking. The knocking turns to banging. He must have been kicking the door too, because the sound was so loud and violent that I thought the frickin' door was gonna break. She lived on such a busy street, so I'm incredibly unsure how none of her neighbours knew that she is home alone at that time or heard the commotion. Of course, we panic, but I knew I had to take control of the situation. My friend's in no state to move, let alone take the lead. I was 13 though, so I was horrified out of my mind. Eventually, I snuck around to the kitchen grabbing a knife. I checked the back door and went to my friend who was sat on the stairs. The stairs are between each door, but have walls that go down each side, so out of sight. When I got back to the stairs, the knocking stopped. My heartbeat seemed to have stopped too, because It sounded like the world become empty. The front doorknob began to turn as he tries to open the door, which is followed by more silence. After maybe 15 seconds, I heard something that I was definitely not happy to hear. "I know you're in there." Now you see. Now if I was an adult, there's no way the man would have said something like that, right? His tone was that of a crazy man, and it left me feeling as though every bone in my body suddenly turned to jelly. Either way, we sat very still. A couple of minutes passed and we thought we were in the clear. That's when I heard the gentle pulling, followed by loud banging on the backyard glass doors. At this point, I grab my friend and bring her upstairs. I grab the phone and we go to her mum's room, getting into the closet. I call the police, feeling physically ill, and talk to the lady on the line. She questions us, and my friend has started crying. I answer her questions and she tells me that someone's coming. We have to wait on the line. I felt like puking but kept incredibly calm to ensure that my friend doesn't fall into a panic attack. She's known to get worked up easily, and I couldn't keep her calm. Eventually the banging stops, and I begin to breathe again. "And you still hear him?" I say no. She tells me that I should check to see if he's still there, but says be quiet and careful. I slowly climb down the stairs and peek at the back door. No one's out there. I walk to the front and step into the room with a window and basically crawl to it. When I peek my head over, I see the man sitting on the stairs outside on his phone. I mean, this just sends me into a frenzy, so I respond in panic that he is. She tells me to go back and hide. The police are close. Eventually, after a long time, there's banging on the door again. This time it ends quickly. A nice lady officer calls to us from outside saying we can come out. We go downstairs and see a male officer talking to him while the woman confronts us. Apparently, the man works for a cable company and was informed to go back if no one was home and let himself in. I think anyone can see the flaw in his alibi, but he had a clipboard that had God knows what on it. The police check and let him out. The woman told us she believes us and not him, that he's actually weird and got away by the grace of God. I hate to think about what could have happened if the man got let in. I'm unsure if this even comes off as horrifying as it felt, but maybe the visual image of the man smiling at the back door that's burned into my memory is why it's frightening to think about still. Either way, I'm just so glad that we managed to get out of there safely. In 2014, when I was home alone, my then boyfriend, now husband, was at work, as I happened to have a very rare day off work. I was watching the Golden Girls as I snuggled around our two cats relaxed. I remembered feeling a strange dreadful feeling. I sat up from the couch and noticed that there's a man with shaggy and greasy long hair. What in the hell? He seemed to make eye contact even though he was roughly 2 blocks away, then suddenly broke into a sprint. I felt this moment in every inch of my body. I rushed into the front porch and locked the screen door before rushing back into the house and locking the main door leading into the house. He was suddenly at the side of our home, punching and kicking the side window of our home as he screams inaudible screams. Either that, or he wasn't opening his mouth enough to make sounds. I don't know which is more terrifying. I was shocked as I stared at him. Suddenly, he lunged off to the side and I realised that the side door might have also been unlocked. I run to our side door and caught it right as I saw a face appear in the tiny window. I began to cry as I locked it before running into our spare bedroom. I whip out my cell phone, dialing 911 as I cry and try and explain the issue. For some reason, the story in my memory skips to my upstairs neighbour calling me about 5 minutes later. He says, "Are you okay?" I say, "I think I am." He began telling me what happens after I hid. Apparently, the man had run into his apartment and knocked calmly. So he answered. He had no way of knowing that the person at his door was not of sound mind, and I had not thought to warn him. He opened his door, leaving only a tiny screen between him and the man. He asked the man if everything's okay, to which the man begins screaming, "They're trying to kill me, help." He was shocked and backed up saying, "Please step back. I will call the police." By then, I'm downstairs dialing already. The man punched his door and ran downstairs, kicking and punching his car in the driveway as he screams about being chased and on the verge of being murdered. He pulled the car doors and punches at the windows as he screamed, and I begged the police to arrive faster. The police finally show up as the man was still fighting the neighbour's car. They had brought along an ambulance and took him away promptly, strapped to the back of a stretcher and a straitjacket. This happened to me last Tuesday, and I can't stop thinking about it. I'll start this story by saying that I'm a 30-year-old female who lives with my fiance and our 2 dogs. I have 2 huskies. My huskies are not guard dogs, but they can be good when they need to be. So anyway, it's 8 PM, dark out, and I'm home alone. My fiance had a hockey game. I'm in the bathroom with the door closed and the blow dryer going, so I can't really hear anything around me. That is, until I hear one of the dogs howl. I stop and listen, thinking that the dogs are fighting again. Then I hear the faintest knock and the dogs start going crazy, barking, howling, and jumping into the bay window. I think they're actually going to break it. I'm thinking, why are the dogs going crazy like that? Is it a skunk or something? And I look out my bedroom window, as it was the closest view I had to the front door. Lo and behold, there's 2 men standing there in black hoodies. They start knocking louder, and this time, my 2-year-old husky jumps from the bay window to the front door and starts growling, ramming his body into the door. I'm watching this from my bedroom as the dogs jump into the door. One of the men jumps back, startled, looks at the other guy and walks away. I called my fiance to get home ASAP. I watched them walk away down the road. They weren't selling anything. I was so creeped out. I still am. Thank goodness for my crazy dogs. Scary men at the door? Let's never meet again, please. A long time ago, my job had an office near the Canadian border in Washington State. I often had to travel over there to help out and train staff. Being a guy in my late 20s, single, and liking to get away for a few days, I always make up extra cash by volunteering to go wherever was needed. I would usually fly up there, but on some occasions when I needed to bring equipment or material, I would drive. This one particular time was about 17 years ago. We bought a ton of equipment wholesale. We needed to deliver this to an office in the Washington area state. Of course, everyone knew I would volunteer for driving. I was told to drive a box truck up there and leave it and fly back. Prior to this, I would drive a company car or SUV, but no worries, the box truck wasn't that big and was probably the same size as one of the U-Haul rental trucks. I always preferred to start my driving journey towards the end of the day mostly, because I like night drives. For the majority of my journey, it's uneventful. I only stopped at a gas station and the occasional rest stop. At some point near the California-Oregon border is when things start to get bad. It's approximately 1 o'clock in the morning. I had stopped at a rest stop, probably the last one on the California side. On the far distance, I do remember seeing other trucks parked, but basically the rest of the parking lot's empty. Now at this point, I wasn't thinking anything creepy or out of the ordinary. I get out of my truck and go into the restroom to take care of business. I wash up a bit and take my sweet time stretching my legs, but when I exit the restroom area and walk over to my truck, I notice a vehicle parked next to mine. I was literally like, this whole parking lot and this one person decides to come next to me. Great. Oh well. I jump in my truck and continue the journey. About 10 or 20 miles down from the freeway, my truck starts acting weird. Some of my interior lights begin flickering. I don't really think anything of it. A little while later, all of the lights in the vehicle goes out. Interior lights, running lights and headlights. At this point, it's about 2 AM, and I'm in some wooded area of Oregon. I can't even find a flashlight in the cabin. I get so angry, not sure of being scared to drive 60 miles an hour in the middle of what seemed like a scene out of the Tales from the Dark Side. But I pound my fist on the dashboard and scream at the truck. Almost instantly, everything come back on. I felt like a Fonzie. At the next upcoming rest stop, I decide to pull over again, and maybe from adrenaline or whatever, I had to pee like never before. I jump out of the truck and went to the restroom, although this time I didn't take that long inside the restroom and walked out to the truck. I remembered my thoughts were, should I stay here till dawn or attempt to continue? As I walk up to my truck, I see an older guy, kind of heavyset with grey hair, standing next to my truck. Now I don't see his vehicle near mine. I just assumed he's stretching his legs out. I start up a conversation about the weather or something. A very light snowfall was falling, but not the kind of stuff that stays on the ground. I wasn't really paying much attention to him, because my first impression was that, it's just an old lonely guy who wants a bit of chit chat. Then he said something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. He's looking at my truck and says, "Are you experiencing any mechanical problems?" I stopped dead in my tracks and felt blood rush into my head and said, "No, just trying to drive and stay out of the cold." He then tells me that he doesn't live far from here and that I would be welcome to join him for a hot coffee, and I can even sleep there if I need. This kind of gave me chills, but me thinking to myself that if I needed I can take him out. I thought I'm younger and stronger and not afraid, but the conversation ended with, "Well, I better be back on the road before the snow starts to fall again, yeah." As I'm driving away, I see that he's walking behind the restrooms, so I think to myself, what the heck's going on? My mind is racing and retracting my last few stops, and how could this guy have known that I had problems? Specifically electrical ones, it makes no sense. I suddenly think back to the rest stop in California, and that the car that was parked next to my truck. Could he have done something to my wiring while I was in there? A few more miles down the road, I'm having no issues electrically speaking. I decide to go to the next gas station to stop. I pull up to a gas station, and in Oregon, they don't let you pump your own gas, so I wait for the attendant and then decide to go in and get a drink. I paid, and as I was waiting for my fueling tank, I walk around my truck and look for signs of tampering. And up near the front fender, I see some smears, but I don't know if it's from the road. I just tell myself, okay, you're just freaking yourself out. I jump back in my truck, and as I pull out of the gas station, I have to make a turn around to get back to the side of the road where the ramp is on, and as I'm turning and about to exit, I see a car parked in the corner and something sitting inside. I think to myself, God, you're freaking out, man. Seeing shadows in every corner. It's just a few hours before dawn. Maybe in the morning, I'm gonna laugh at this. I think, did I interrupt that old guy when I came out of the restroom so fast? Was he following me, waiting for the right time and place to kill me? As I continue driving on the snow, it starts to get a little more concerning. I didn't grow up in areas that snow lasts in, and I know how dangerous it is driving like this. I look out my rearview mirror, and I now see a pair of headlights trailing me. This is odd because most drivers pass me. This person is following me. I'm already going well under the speed limit. He's not passing me. I go slower. At some point, I'm getting closer to a larger city in Portland. It's still dark and snow is still falling lightly. I decide to pull over again, and maybe the car's gonna pass. I quickly exit the freeway, and in front of me is another gas station with a petrol car parked there. I immediately pull up next to the cops and get out. There's a lady officer there, and I start making conversation about the snow and the expected conditions. I'm thinking about telling her about the car behind me, but all of a sudden, I just feel so silly about the whole situation. What was I gonna say? Oh, I'm being followed by an old man. She's kind of nice, and we're talking for a bit, and she says, where am I going and where'd I come from? She does suggest that I stop for the night, and starts telling me about the dangers of driving sleepy. I take a look around the area, and said, yeah, I will stop for the night. She tells me that if I go down the road a couple of blocks near the 7-Eleven, there's a motel. I look around and do not see the car anymore. I decide that I will stop for the night and go inside to sleep. As I pull up to the motel, I decide to park away from the room, and I get to park straight behind the motel so I can't be seen from the road. I go into my hotel room as quickly as I can, locking the door, and I can honestly say I don't get much rest. I watch TV and nodded off here, but I'm awoken by every sound. My mind kept racing back to recalling all the events from before California and my conversation with the police. Maybe he saw me speaking to the cops and took off. I'm certain he saw me there talking to them. Maybe he was waiting for me to pull over at another rest stop and his plan went wrong. Why would he invite a complete stranger into his house in the middle of the dead of night at a rest stop? Why did he ask if I was having electrical problems specifically? Finally, it's about 7 AM, and I decide that enough is enough. I get up, go outside, have a big breakfast, continue on to my office without anything weird happening, or actually finding out why I was being followed. So I was driving by myself on a highway in Maine, cranking killer tunes, slamming Mountain Dew big gulps, and sucking back Americans' bright lights. Decided to go hog wild at a Taco Bell drive-thru and ordered an enormous amount of food. So I'm devouring the Taco Bell, had a full menu of assortments. Live mess. Of course, about 40 minutes after I ate, my stomach began sizing and cramping. There was to be no refunds, no returns. Luckily I see a rest stop coming up in about 2 miles. I floor it to pull in. It's about 1:30 AM, and it seems pretty vacant. There's one other vehicle in the lot, windows steamed up. I assume it's just another road tripper who had to pull over just to get some rest. No judgment. I get out of my car and run into the men's room. I really needed to get to the bathroom. Figuring I'm gonna be in there for a while, I brought some smokes and a copy of Mad magazine that I always keep in my car. I suddenly hear footsteps though. I hear him taking deep breaths. I holler out, "Hey man, I'd keep those breaths shallow." No response. I can see dude's feet right in front of my stall, and they're massive. They have to be at least size 17. Dirty as hell too. I sit in silence staring at those massive clown shoes, when suddenly, the guy starts grabbing my door, shaking it. "I'll be a minute, you idiot," I scream. Then it stops. I hear a lot of squeaking, then footsteps again, and the door opening and slamming shut. Of course there's no toilet roll in there. I'm really irritated, but I have my paper from the magazine. I exit the store and see a marker written on the wall, "See you outside." Now I was born and raised in Maine. I've met a lot of guys called Nitro, which this is signed. We're not in the middle of nowhere in a rest stop. I hatch a plan that I'm gonna go for it. I open the restroom door and sprint to my car, not looking back. I hear lots of footsteps behind me, and a scream sound. I left my car unlocked because it's crap. I get right in. I get the car going and do a bit of rummaging around, manage to burn out and speed off. In my rearview mirror, I see the silhouette of a massive man. He has a lead pipe in his hand, throwing his hat to the ground in anger. I speed away. I have no idea who this guy is or what his intentions are, but I'm just glad I got out of there as quick as I could. About 2 years ago, me and my family moved from New Jersey to Florida for a fresh start. Before I start my encounter, I want to iterate my mental state at the time because it contributes to how I acted at the time of the story. So, the night of the move, my mother got a call from a close family friend. She'd just become pregnant and began to have complications, fearing she'd lose a baby. My mother, being the awesome woman she is, went over to help watch and look after her young son, and calm my friend down and tell her to go to the hospital to get checked out. So, her and her husband rushed over to the hospital, and luckily she hadn't lost a child. But it wasn't until 1 in the morning my mother got back and I was still up, waiting for her to get back. So yeah, we're dead tired the next day when we had to pack up everything for a long trip to our new home in Florida, while my father had slept through the whole ordeal the night before. But that's just me moaning anyway. I'm driving with my mother while my father is in another car. I'm not exactly happy about the move. So tired and upset, we continue our trip. We're always driving from NJ to FL for years and never had any weird experiences out there. I'm not sure about my parents, but they never talked about anything creepy in my 22 years I've been alive, and I've travelled with them. And trust me, they love to tell stories, and so do I. So, when this happened, I was wholly unprepared for it. Now, it certainly didn't help with what happened the night before either. So we stop at one of the many stops on our way to Florida, and I think we're in the Carolinas, or somewhere near this when it happened, and we stopped. Now, if you've never travelled by car before, a rest stop is kind of like a mini rest area. These places are for travellers who either need a minute to stretch, use a bathroom, or somewhere they can safely sleep for the night. They're usually well lit, and have vending machines for anyone who needs a snack or drink. It was late, maybe 9 at night, when we stopped to stretch our legs and use a bathroom. I wanted a few snacks, so I asked my mother for some. She gave them to me, and I entered the nice little enclosed area that contained machines. So I'm standing here alone picking what I want when a woman comes in. She's short, skinny, older, who's dressed nice with bleached blonde hair. When I glance at her and smile politely, she comes right up to me and holds her hands out for a shake, introducing herself. Dumbfounded, I shake her hand and told her my name. After that, she launches into this tale of woe about how she lost her wedding ring, and that her car's out of gas and she needs money. I'm just standing there trying to listen and figure out, how do I get out of here? Now you have to understand, this was literally the first time anyone had ever approached me at any rest stop. Mostly because I don't have the most friendly of faces. Even though I'm a girl, I'm tall, around 5'6". I'm taller than most girls, especially her. Broad-shouldered, and I resemble my father. He doesn't have the most welcoming of faces either. But me? I'm a bleeding heart and never want to be rude to anyone. But in this situation, I would have been it, if it wasn't so out of the blue. When I'm in situations new to me, I tend to freeze up, and I can't think. I don't know how to act or what to do in the situations I'm not expecting. Now, as you can probably guess, I'm a big introvert and socially awkward, but I don't have a problem with telling people to go away. But in this situation, I'm outright panicking, and I just want to get away from the weird woman. And as I say weird, because that head injury I mentioned, she didn't have one, not even a bruise. She's talking so fast and nonsensual, I can't help her. For some reason, being polite is more important than getting away. So I'm standing there, exhausted to my bones, about to shove what my little money I have in her face to get her to go away when my mum walks in. My badass of a mum comes right in and says that I can't and tells me to come with her. The woman takes a step back. I realised just how close she was. I hadn't even noticed how steadily closer she was coming to me. She tells my mum how beautiful I am, how nice I am, and I look really kind and caring. My mum ain't replying. She grabs me by my arm, walking me to the bathroom saying, "Am I okay?" That woman goes the opposite direction of where her car is said to be. We get out of there quick. Looking back on it all, at the time I thought it was just weird, and I was certainly weirded out by it all, but I just thought whatever. But after listening to more of these stories, I realised how lucky I am 2 years later that the situation hadn't escalated. I think the reason she approached me was probably because the ones I mentioned earlier. What really freaked me out is what a friend said to me recently, that she may have been scouting to see if I was a target for a kidnapping. Apparently, people do get kidnapped from situations leading from rest stops where they're scouted. They find out where you're going, and if you're driving alone, then attack you. I'm not certain if this was what happened that day, but I have a horrible feeling that it might have been. I'm very thankful for my mother taking great care of me that day. I was 18 years old, and on my way home to California on summer break after my sophomore year of college, I had a 9-hour car ride ahead of me and stocked up on energy drinks, soda and snacks for the ride home. I left school late after dinner with friends and planned on driving into the night. I'm making good time, and I'm around 3 or so hours from home. I'm right outside Vernio on a lonely stretch of road when this happened. I suddenly get the urge to pee. Those energy drinks I chugged are catching up with me. I saw a sign that advertised a rest stop coming up, so I drove a few miles to the sign and pulled in. Now parked in the parking lot was a ratchet looking sedan on the other side of the road. Now I quickly get out and hurriedly jog to the restroom before I peed myself. I was flushing when I heard someone enter and I freeze. I'm in decent physical shape and I work out often, but for a guy, I'm on the smaller side at only 5'7" and 160 pounds. So I'm bracing myself for some Michael Myers type of stuff when I open the door, and I see your average looking Joe. He looked up and gave me a friendly smile, then stepped over to the urinal. I start washing my hands, getting ready to leave, and he begins speaking to me. His voice is low and gravelly, so low I can't even hear him. He says, "You like dogs, man?" He asked me as he washed his hands. He's wearing a mechanic's overalls and is covered in grease. I say, "Yeah, dogs are cool," as I left. Well, that was the wrong thing to say because he comes up and says, "I got a new puppy. Wanna see him? He's real cute." Now I'm freaking out. Keys are in one hand and cell phone's in the other. I call him back and say, "No, I gotta get going." I'm getting into my car when he grabs me. He grabs the door, opening it wide now. He's quite strong and a few inches taller than me. I start my car, put my phone in my ear, and quickly pretend I'm on the phone to the cops. With that, I kick him in the stomach, and thank God it connected. He lets go of the door, falling flat. I lock the doors and screech out of there. I see him then scrambling to get to his car, but I sped out of there before he can catch me. I'm a nervous wreck for the next 3 hours, thinking he's gonna follow me home to finish off the job. When I got home, I told my dad, who had stayed up to wait for me, what happened, and he told me to call the police. I made sure to make a big report of what happened and recount the entire event. I never went back that way again. Wherever that guy is, I sure as hell don't want to see your puppy. So basically, this started yesterday with me and my cousins when we got home from a party at around 10 PM. We're sitting in my living room for a while, just watching Netflix, and nothing seems weird during that time. At one point, I jokingly said to my cousin, "Look behind you. There's something there." Knowing there's nothing there, and she gave me a sarcastic look. We kept on playing jokes on each other the whole time, and she kept on getting annoyed at me, but it was funny. Until, out of nowhere, my dog jumped up on me, ran to the front door and starts barking aggressively. We kept yelling at her to stop because she didn't leave it alone for at least another 3 minutes. I thought maybe she could have heard a noise from the TV or something that scared her. But the movie we were watching had ended like 30 minutes ago, and we're both just sitting in silence on our phones. Keep in mind, this is around 12 AM. After this happened, I was kind of nervous and pretty confused, but my dog's done this before. So once again, I tried to ignore it and not think about it much. It's around 1 AM when me and my cousin decide to go upstairs and start getting ready for sleep. I was laying down checking my Snapchat, then I saw it. On my snap maps, I can see someone's at my house. I start thinking of all the possibilities of who this could be. He's called Sebastian. At this point, I'm really confused and get worried because I don't even know a Sebastian. And I'm starting to get really confused now. I don't remember adding one either. I went back downstairs to check and make sure all the doors are locked. In my house, we have an alarm system where every time you open a door, it will chime to let you know. For some reason, it was unplugged, meaning if the doors were being opened, whatever it was would shield the door, backyard gate, or just any doors leading to my house so that we're always notified. I asked my cousin if she unplugged it, and she said she didn't even know we had it. I'm worried now because when I checked SnapMap, it said he's last seen an hour ago. That's when my dog starts barking viciously for no reason. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed connected, but there was really nothing I can do now. As I already checked downstairs and locked all the doors, I do have multiple cameras around my home. I decided I would just check them in the morning because I need to get a password from my mum anyway. It's currently the afternoon, and now I'm waiting to check the cameras, but nothing weird happened since last night. Although when I last checked Snap Maps, he was last seen 11 minutes ago still at my home. I did send him "Who are you?" and he didn't reply. I don't know what else to do apart from check the cameras and wait for other people to come back. The problem is I'm not really sure if I have any proof of what happened that I could even bring to the cops. Okay, now, so today has been crazy. Me and my cousins have both been pretty freaked out. I'll start with last night. My cousin and I kept hearing these strange sounds at the night. I even thought I heard people talking outside my home at around 3 AM. Also, I kept getting told to call the police, which I did the following morning. I'll get to that later. Now this guy wasn't on Snap Maps at all that night. I started to think maybe I'm being paranoid. However, we were wrong. We finally checked the password to the cameras and unfortunately, we find nothing from the night before. Then we checked the footage this morning from last night around 2 AM. The camera picked up a figure and I have multiple pictures you guys can look at. The figure looks white but it was actually all black. And the camera introverted it but we really don't know. So we actually have a picture of 4 men around my home. So we kept telling the police what happened and they come this morning to check out the footage. They also looked around our home to make sure nobody's still lurking. They said they would patrol around our neighbourhood when it got dark for the next few days. They made a report on the man trespassing and we gave them as much information as we can to hopefully find him. We both feel a little better, but it's really unnerving to know somebody was actually lurking in the house at night. Neither of us can figure out what he's trying to do. He just looked as though he's walking around, but like I said, we really don't have a clue what he wants. This whole ordeal has left me very stressed out, and I'm scared for my cousin and the rest of the family. I'm still very shaken up and worried that he's going to return and was just scouting it out. He knows vulnerable people live here who are left alone. I just hope he doesn't take advantage of this.